everybody? Welcome back to another episode of No Bros All Monos podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Phoebus. And man, we are here. 2023 is upon us. And I got to say, it's already starting off to be a pretty rough year in the combat sports and MMA world, specifically in the UFC. But there's some outside stuff going on at ONE FC. It's just kind of bad news with the passing of one of the Lee sisters. And it's just been a wild year. But we never really wrapped up 2022. So I think today what we're going to get into, we're going to do our MMA awards for 2022, and then we're going to do a little championship predictions for 2023 come this time next year. And then we'll finish it off with two hot takes of 2023. I think one of them is pretty hot. The other one is, I think, even hotter. These might not, I would honestly say that these are probably not going to happen, but if they do, I'm a genius. So let's just get right into it. We got our MMA awards for 2022, and, we're not going to do like the super in-depth, like the MMA hour, 26 categories. All respect to him for doing that. I mean, it really is the best MMA award show in the business. Shout out to Ariel and the guys at MMA hour. But, here we're just going to do some basic ones. I've got walkout of the year, KO of the year, sub of the year, fight of the year, male and female fighter of the year. And, let's jump right off into it. I had to do this one just because I'm stealing it. I'm just going to be straight up. I'm stealing this one. Stealing a little swag off of the MMA hour. Walkout of the year. And this one, it's kind of a funny award because you don't really pay attention to in general to walkouts of the year. And when I was thinking back about this, I had one that I thought was solidified, and I don't know how anybody could beat it. And then come the last event of the year, Bellator versus Rizin, Juan Archuleta's walkout was phenomenal. I mean, he got dressed up in the traditional Aztec or Mayan wardrobe with the jaguar headdress, the way he was dancing down there, the smoke coming up from the sides. I mean, this had WWE production around a walkout. I mean, everybody got a cool walkout, but I just thought the way he dressed up, the backstory behind it with that Mara was explaining, the attire, like I said, the atmosphere of the crowd, just the overall kind of picture that it set up, I thought was absolutely phenomenal. So Juan Archuleta, you get the walkout of the year for 2022 at the Bellator versus Rizin event that took place New Year's Eve on Showtime. Great event, good fights on there, but that walkout just stood out for me. My honorable mention, who I thought was the lock, was Paddy Pimblett when he walked out in London at the UFC London card. Just hearing that crowd chant, "Oh, Paddy the baddie." Now, everybody's attitude about Paddy Pimblett, I feel like, has changed in the last couple weeks just because of the terrible Jared Gordon decision that really kind of gave some negative light around him, like that the UFC is just kind of going to give him the kind of stuff. He's going to get the decision, that he's just going to get whatever he wants. It was just a terrible decision. But, and then the comments he said about Dana with Ariel and the MMA media, with Dana White on his podcast. And just like his comments were hypocritical about that. But, that walkout at UFC London, though, I thought was something special. I mean, it gave me chills just hearing that crowd, the way they were all chanting in unison. I mean, even through the TV, you could hear how loud that one was. But I just thought that Juan Archuleta's was more individual, more spectacular, more creative, had a little bit more of that substance to it, that little sabor, that little flavor to it. Juan Archuleta, walkout of the year. Honorable mention, Paddy the Baddie Pimblett. Let's move on to KO of the year. Now, I think that there was only two picks to make for this. There were only two correct answers. One, it's 1A and 1B. It's really what is your taste? What do stakes really matter to you? Does Does who it's against matter? All of these things come into come into the picture of picking your knockout of the year. But for me, it was Michael Chandler front kicking Tony Ferguson in the face. I mean, Tony's never been knocked out cold like that. The sheer power in that you could see in that kick, the promo cut by Chandler afterward, the photograph that you get to see of Tony's face just smushed. I just thought it was just one of the most spectacular front kick knockouts I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, honestly, better than Anderson's, Silva's, better than Machida's. Phenomenal stuff. Phenomenal stuff. The promo afterward, just the whole thing, the backflips. I mean, Tony was out too. It wasn't just, knockout and he got up pretty quickly. No. Tony was out. It was one of those ones where I was genuinely worried about Tony Ferguson. I mean, he was already on this rough kind of knockout and getting beat up stint, taking a lot of damage lately, and then to just get flatlined by Michael Chandler. I mean, Tony walked straight into it, and you could see Michael Chandler turn the hip and then throw the whole sort of power behind it, and it just landed flush. And it was just a thing of beauty. A thing of fucking beauty. Now, I gotta say, that's my knockout of the year, but the only other correct answer is Leon Edwards' head kick knockout of Kamaru Usman to win the title in the 5th round. The stakes behind that one, going up against the pound-for-pound guy, number one guy. Kamaru's on a 15-fight win streak, or going for the record. Leon is down on the cards for sure. He won the 1st round, but everything else up to that point was all Kamaru Usman. John Anik makes this call that, don't count him out, and all of a sudden, bang, head kick, the iconic photo of Kamaru Usman just being lost in the sauce, essentially. And then Leon's promo was maybe just as good, if not better. The iconic now line, headshot, KO, look at me now. I mean, it was awesome stuff. But for me, it was just the devastatingness of Michael Chandler's just outweighed the devastating factor of Leon Edwards to me. And so I picked Michael Chandler. I really had a hard time picking between Michael Chandler and Leon Edwards on this one, but in the end, both great knockouts. I'm just picking Michael Chandler. Those are the only two answers. Let's just be honest. Those are the only two. You can say what you want about. There was a lot of great knockouts this year, but those two, I think, stand the test of time and will be ones you will remember. For me this year, though, for 2022 Knockout of the Year, Michael Chandler. Congratulations, sir. Moving on, we got Submission of the Year. Now, this year, this one was weird to me. There was no real submissions that, had that wow factor about them. That, a crazy, buggy choke that really was like on a top level guy. There was only two answers for me on this one. There was only one submission that stood out as far as like uniqueness because it had never happened before. And that was Jessica Andrade choking out Amanda Ramos with the standing arm triangle. I mean, phenomenal stuff. Phenomenal. Beautiful submission. But the submission of the year for me, because who it came against, the stakes, and just beating a guy at his own game. Islam Makhachev submitting Charles Oliveira in the 2nd round and winning the 155-pound title in Abu Dhabi, finishing Father's Plan. Man, I mean, what do we say? That submission, I mean, it was Islam Makhachev beating Charles Oliveira, the submission king in the UFC. He submitted him, and it was just the dominance of the fight, the stakes. I mean, Charles Oliveira was on just such a hot streak. I picked Islam to win, but a lot of people did not pick Islam to win. I think if we actually went back and looked at it, most people probably picked Charles to win that fight, and also probably picked him to submit Islam Makhachev. And what did Islam do? He went out there and ran over Charles and made it look like Charles did not deserve to even be in the same octagon with him. He went out there, dropped Charles in the 2nd round, and then locked up that arm triangle. And it was tight before he even hopped from when he took him down, when he got on top, he was on the right side and then moved it to mount, moved all the way, before he even got to the left side and cleared the legs. It was already tight, and Charles was already about to start tapping. And he locked it up and closed the show on the submission king of the UFC. Islam Makhachev is your submission of the year. And, it's not really close to me. I mean, it is close with the uniqueness of Jessica Andrade's submission because it had never happened before. But just the stakes and who it was against. Islam Makhachev, submission of the year 2022. Okay, let's move on to fight of the year. Now, again, lots of great fights this year. Poirier, Chandler, great fight. David Onama versus Landwehr, great fight. Sumudarji versus Matt Schnell, great fight. But there was only one answer to this one again. Yuri Prochazka versus Glover Teixeira is the fight of the year 2022, and it's not really close. This fight had everything. It had sloppy moments. It had beautiful technique moments. It had knockdowns. It had one-sided beatings. It had reversals. And then to just make it encompassed, it had a late finish in the final minute of the 5th round where Yuri was down on the scorecards. Glover Teixeira was going to win this fight, and Yuri pulled out the submission. I actually got to say, this is probably the 1C for submission of the year. It really is, though, because of the clutchness of it. But anyways, we're on fight of the year. This whole fight was phenomenal. It was so back and forth. At moments, Glover was just beating the shit out of Yuri from the mount position. And then Yuri would reverse the position and land some devastating stuff himself. Or it'd be up on the feet and Yuri would strike heavy shots on Glover, have him wobbled. Glover would somehow get the takedown, beat the shit out of Yuri, reversal, back up to the feet. I mean, it was just so back and forth. But Glover was clearly up on the scorecards in the 5th round and had to just survive the final 2 minutes, 1 minute or so. And Yuri gets the reversal and locks in the, I believe it was a rear naked choke, and gets the submission in the final minute. I mean, it was just phenomenal. Going back, it's, if you looked at it on Verdict and how many people, Verdict MMA, the app, and how many people picked Yuri Prochazka to win by submission in the 5th round, I think it was only one person. And he's kind of like the folklore legend now on Verdict for just making that pick. Whether it's a joke or not, he just looks like a genius either way. I mean, this fight just had everything, man. Yuri is just so dynamic. And then how can you not love Glover? Just being the 41-year-old, old school guy, OG, the gangster, the guy who everybody feared and just was this kind of dark horse in the shadows for so long because of visa issues, comes out, makes some noise, but finally got the title. And then you have Yuri coming in, just this Majin Buu looking character with the hair, just this man of mystery, this man of the forest kind of guy. And the fight just over-delivered. It was so good, and it will stand the test of time. This one's headed for the Hall of Fame, in my opinion, on the fight wing of the UFC Hall of Fame. Just a phenomenal fight. Phenomenal. From start to finish. This is one of those fights to where you may tell, your casual MMA fan or friend, that doesn't really watch the sport, you need to show them a fight that they are going to enjoy watching and be like, no, this is what the peak of the peak a good fight could look like. Show them Yuri Prochazka versus Glover Teixeira. Show them that fight. And I guarantee you that they will walk away from that fight being like, wow, that was an amazing fight, because it was. And for that reason, it is Fight of the Year 2022. Congratulations to those guys. Yuri, I hope to see you back very soon. He's dealing with that shoulder injury. Hopefully we get the rematch. That division's in shambles. That's a whole nother topic. On to the next award. We got Women's Fighter of the Year. Now, this one was pretty easy for me. Again, this one felt like there was only 2 people. My honorable mention, I guess you could say, is Larissa Pacheco from PFL. Just going on she went 4-0 this year, especially with the big win over Chris Cyborg, winning the PFL championship. That was a great win. But for me, MMA's Female Fighter of the Year is Zhang Weili. And what a year she had. Only 2 wins, But the quality of those 2 wins, I feel like just those 2 wins alone outweigh the quality of wins of Larissa Pacheco. She started off the year kind of cementing that she was better than Joanna Jędrzejczyk with a spinning back fist knockout of Joanna early in the year. Just a phenomenal fight. Showed that she had leveled up in the striking department to where Joanna could not compete with her. It was an anticipated rematch, and it wasn't close. Weili just looked dominant. And then Weili comes out against Carla Esparza later in the year and just completely dominates Carla Esparza at her own game in the grappling department. Outstrikes her. She's leveled up. She is on a new level, and I don't know if there's really anybody that can beat her right now. I mean, she's shown such improvements from those losses that she took to Rose. I mean, it's almost like that she needed those losses to happen in order to achieve this level that she's at now, because her striking is just phenomenal. She's a bulldog. She is trying to hurt you. Her grappling has leveled up. I mean, she out-grappled the person that many people said is the best grappler in this division in Carla Esparza, and she finished her on the ground in a sort of a crucifix choke, I believe, if I remember correctly. But, Zhang Weili, female fighter of the year, and I cannot wait to see what she does this year. We're going to talk more about her in a little bit. But let's move in to male fighter of the year. Again, another one where it's like a two-headed dog race, No real wrong pick between these two. It's more so of just your taste. But for me, it was Alexander Volkanovski. Now, I think I said it on a previous podcast. Just the biggest win of the year was Alexander Volkanovski getting the trilogy win over Max Holloway. And that was just such a big moment for him. After having 2 close fights with Max, and just to come out and put on that third performance where it was just not even close. This one was the least controversial of them all, the most one-sided of them all. I thought that was the biggest single win of the year, in my opinion. But earlier in the year, he had beat up Chang Sun-Jun in a late replacement. Credit to Chang Sun-Jun, the Korean Zombie, for coming out and at least standing in there with him. But Volkanovski made him look amateur in this fight. And maybe is that because Chang Sun-Jun's getting old, the Korean Zombie's getting old, and, he's taking damage, as we've known him for his entire career. But Volk put it on him, and then even had moments of showing, empathy and a little sadness. Asked him, like, are you sure you want to continue in the fight? And, the Korean Zombie, too tough for his own good, said, yeah, let's go. And Volk just continued to light him up. I mean, these 2 wins are very, very quality. The Chang Sun-Jun one, the Korean Zombie one, it has like this asterisk because, Korean Zombie has taken so much damage, and he was on late replacement. But at the time, he was the number 4 ranked guy, I believe, 6 or 4 in that range. And he stepped in there. Credit to him to fight Volkanovski, and Volkanovski just destroyed him, like I said, and the standing finish, essentially, where Herb Dean had to step in without Korean Zombie even getting knocked down again. Just amazing striking display by Volk. And then, like I said, he followed it up with, I thought, the biggest win of the year, his trilogy win over Max Holloway. He's clearly set himself up as the best striker, in my opinion, in MMA overall. Now, is there better Muay Thai specific guys? Yes, your Fizayevs. Is there better boxers? Yeah, I would say maybe let's say Yanez or whoever. There are better individual, I would say, sport specific strikers out there. But overall, in the sense of MMA striking, I think Volkanovski is just clearly the best one of them all. And his 2 wins, I just felt were so dominant. So, not even dominant, not even close, that I just thought it set him apart from other male fighters this year and made him the male fighter of the year. The only other one you could have in this conversation is Alex Poatan Pereira. And he had three wins this year. He started off with that close decision win over God dang it, what's the guy's name? I'm sorry to this gentleman. Bruno Silva, if I remember correctly, Bruno Silva. And then, he had the emphatic knockout of Sean Strickland, and then he finished off the year with the KO of the long-reigning champion, Israel Adesanya. And so, I just thought that with that early decision in the year, it kind of dropped him out. He did have the 2 finishes later on in the year, but I just thought that Volkanovski just separated himself so much further from the rest of his division than Alex Poatan Pineda did, which made him my male fighter of the year. There's questions still about Poatan and, who's next for him. And there's, in my opinion, unfavorable matchups still left in that division because of how he was fast-tracked that we need to see. Whereas Volkanovski is just widening the gap in the rest of the featherweight division, and it's just not even really close anymore. There's good fights for him, but I don't see anybody right now that can beat him. But we'll talk more about him here in a little bit. But that's going to do it for our MMA awards of the year. Congratulations to Michael Chandler for the KO of the year. Congratulations to Juan Archuleta on the walkout of the year. Zhang Weili, female fighter of the year. Alexander Volkanovski, male fighter of the year. And the fight of the year, Yuri Prochazka versus Glover Teixeira. Congratulations to all you guys. Phenomenal stuff. And that's going to do it, like I said, for our 2022 awards on MMA. Okay, so let's do a little prediction time here. We are coming into 2023, and, we have our champions. They're all locked from 2022. We have a title fight coming up, not this weekend, the following weekend. We've got Brandon Moreno and Figgy for their 4th fight together, and they're hashing out the flyweight title fight. That one's coming up, like I said, in 2 weeks. So we'll see how that goes. But let's do a little predictions, and let's see if we can look like a genius a little bit and pick who is going to be the champion of each weight class, women and men, in the UFC on this date in January of 2024. Let's see if we can get some right. And, some of these picks are fun, in my opinion. I'm kind of stepping out there. I'm going a little wild. But some of these are pretty boring. I'm just going to be honest. But let's start it off. Ladies first. We've got the women's strawweight belt. Your current champion right now is Zhang Weili. And at the end of 2023, January 1st, 2024, your champion will be Zhang Weili. Now, I think that she can beat Rose in a trilogy just based off, the fighter that she's become, the improvement in the striking, the improvement in grappling, just the overall power, the meanness in her game. I think that she is going to she probably will get that trilogy fight with Rose, but Rose is 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It always seems like it's just like, which Rose are you going to get? Are you going to get I'm the best Rose who knocked out Zhang Weili, or are you going to get Rose Carla Esparza Rose, which is the boringest fight of all time? And I think, we can always see Zhang Weili match up with who is it? Jessica Andrade in the rematch. I would love to see that one. But, I would say overall that Zhang Weili is just the best right now in that division, and I don't think it's really close. Like I said, who else we got in this division? Just running it down. You got Carla right there, the number 1 contender, Rose Namajunas, Amanda Lemos, Jessica Andrade, Marina Rodriguez, Yan Xiaonan, Mackenzie Dern, Tisha Torres, Amanda Ribas, Viviane Jandiroba. Yeah, this division's going through a little bit of, I would say, almost a dead phase right now, where you've got some old blood in there, but you've got a little bit of new blood kind of making a little statement, but not as much as I would say women's flyweight. But I just think that Zhang Weili is just going to be a champion of this division for a while. Amanda Lemos is dangerous for sure. She's got the power, and I think that's probably would be her toughest fight if I had to pick one for Zhang Weili, just because of how powerful she is. But I think that she would use her grappling and control her on the ground. and she is going to get that win. Hopefully we get to see that fight, maybe at the end of the year. But I think if we got to see Zhang Weili fight somebody, her next fight, it'd probably be Rose, and I think that she would win that. And the end of 2023, I am picking Zhang Weili to be the champion on January 1st, 2024. Moving on, we've got women's flyweight. And this one's pretty easy. I'm picking Valentina Shevchenko. I don't think that anybody's really closed the gap too much on her. You know, there's still some questions though in this division. You know, Talia Santos is supposed to be coming back. You know, who knows? You know, where's she at? What she's gonna look like. She's been off for 4 years. You know, you got Manon Ferrot. You know, she's really good. The French fighter. You know, Kaylin Chookagian, she's always been in there. Lauren Murphy looked great with her grappling. Alexa Grasso, she's been looking good, but she doesn't get finishes, so she's probably never going to get a title shot until she can show that she can finish somebody. It's just sad to say, but it's the truth. And then you also have Erin Blanchfield, who's sitting down there. She's got a big fight coming up, and you know, she's really the only one that right now I could see, you know, making that step to eventually push Valentina Shevchenko. She's so young, so technical, so well-rounded. You know, the way she dominated Molly Meatball McCann was just impressive. Yeah, I can't, but, you know, Valentina's Valentina, you know, and she's on the precipice of making a run at you know, most title defenses of all time. You know, I think that she definitely has that ability, you know. Will she do it? We remain to see. But, you know, I could see her getting 1-2 fights in 2023. And yeah, let's just see how she looks. But I do believe that January 1st, 2024, Valentina Shevchenko will still be your champion of this division. Moving on, women's bantamweight / women's featherweight. Let's just combine it into one, because at the end of the year, there will still be a double champion, and it's Amanda Nunes, obviously. You know, she's clearly the best fighter in this division. You know, it'll be interesting to see. Does the UFC make the trilogy between Valentina Shevchenko and Amanda Nunes? Remains to be seen. You know, I would love to see it. I thought that, you know, very, very close second fight. Pretty boring fight overall, but, you know, some people gave it to Valentina. I gave it to Amanda. You know, we'll see where it goes. But I think Amanda has just separated herself in this division. She's cleared it out. There's no real new talent. The only other thing I could see happening if they don't make the Valentina fight, Valentina versus Amanda Nunes 3, the only other thing, you know, there's another possibility to where it's, you know, Amanda gets one more fight in, you know, who could it be? Ketlin Vieira, I guess. Juliana Pena, she's already beat her, you know, and it was pretty dominant. I'm not really trying to see the trilogy of that already. It's a little quick. But, you know, you can honestly see Amanda Nunes fight once this year, beat Ketlin Vieira, and then retire. And, you know, you could end up with, you know, Holly Holm or somebody else, you know, getting into a vacant title fight and ending up the champion. But I've got a strong feeling that Amanda wants to just keep beating up these women that try and contend for her title. And I don't see anybody giving her a problem. The only person I think that would give her a problem is Valentina Shevchenko if she moved up to go for the belt and the trilogy fight. But yeah, that's going to do it for our women's divisions. Like I said, come January 1st, 2024, women's strawweight, Zhang Weili, women's flyweight, Valentina Shevchenko, and then women's bantamweight and featherweight, I've still got Amanda Nunes, January 1st, 2024, as your champions of the women's divisions. Moving on to the men, and we're going to start with your flyweights. This is a fun one for me. I mean, I don't know if you guys are going to be picking it the way I am, and if you guys agree with me about who's going to get this belt. But we've got the unified title fight coming up here in 2 weeks between Deiveson Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno. Their fourth fight, the first fourth fight between two opponents in UFC history. And so, I would love. I'm really interested in that fight, but who I think is going to be champion, and I think this guy has all the skill and talent in the world. I think he's got the power too, honestly. I'm picking Alexandre Pantoja to be your champion on January 1st of 2024. I think Deiveson Figueiredo has a hard time making the weight cut down to this weight class, and I think if he loses this fight to Moreno, I think he moves up. If he wins, I think he holds the belt, but obviously then I think they're going to give Pantoja the title shot after that. I mean, the UFC cannot do straight into a fifth fight. It just can't happen. I mean, you've just got all these contenders in here moving around. Pantoja, below him, Kai Kara-France, who obviously lost his last fight to Moreno. Brandon Royval, Mateus Nicolau. I mean, some of these guys are literally one win away from being in that title picture. But I think that Pantoja is the guy that has the skills, has the striking, has the grappling ability to be champion. And I think come January 1st of 2024, he will be the UFC champion of the men's flyweight division. Moving on to the deepest, most stacked, deadliest, most killers in the division of the UFC. It's the men's bantamweight division. And man, we've got like I said, this division is just so damn deep. I mean, you could literally pick, let's just run it down. Right now, your current champion is Aljamain Sterling as we sit here. Number 1, Sean O'Malley. Number 2, Petr Yan. Whoever you thought won, fine. I'm not going to get into that. I thought Petr won. Fight was closer than I think a lot of people were giving it credit. Not a robbery, in my opinion. Just a close fight. Number 2, like I said, Petr Yan. Number 3, Merab Davishvili. Number 4, Chito Vera, Corey Sandhagen, Rob Font, Dominic Cruz, Yadong Song, Pedro Munoz, Ricky Simone, Umar Nurmagomedov, Chris Gutierrez, Adrian Yanez, Jack Shore, Sayed Nurmagomedov. We've got a big fight coming up in this division, too. We've got Marlon Vera taking on Corey Sandhagen here very shortly. This division is just so stacked. Any of these guys I could see being a champion just on any given night. I think any one of these guys can beat anybody I'd say, the top 15 even. Chris Gutierrez is down there at 12, and his striking has looked top 5 level, honestly. And then, your top 5 guys, Corey Sandhagen, perennial, top 5 guy. Marlon Chito Vera, just a legend. OG of the game. Merab Davishvili beat up on Jose Aldo and retired him. Had some of probably the best grappling in this division. Petr Yan, arguably the people's champion of this division. Sean O'Malley, the fan favorite, dynamic striker, won a close decision over Petr Yan. Your non-people's champion, I would argue, Aljamain Sterling. This division is crazy, super deep, but come January 1st of 2024, my champion of this division is Marlon Chito Vera. I think he gets it. I think he finally gets that belt. And, he's got a big test ahead of him, beating Corey Sandhagen, first of all. I think that's a really tough fight. Really, really tough fight. I think it's going to be an action-packed banger. I think Chito Vera gets it done, gets the decision. I could see a knockout, would not surprise me at all by either guy, but I think Marlon Vera, Chito Vera moves on from that fight the winner. And I think he gets the title shot after. I think the rumor is right now Cejudo's coming back too, just adding more depth to the division. Cejudo's going to get the fight against Aljamain. It doesn't really matter who I see winning that one. I think that Chito Vera ends the year as your champion. One way or another. I think that he just has the skills necessary. I think that he's had the grit. I think that he's just, he's leveled up, and he just needs these top 5 guys to fight to win and get him that title shot. And I think that he gets it done and ends the year as your bantamweight champion. Yeah, what a crazy division. That division is so hard to talk about and predict people being champion there. You know, I don't know who's going to be. I'm picking Cheeto Vera. I'm just going to stick with it and go from there. Moving on, men's featherweight. Now, probably the easiest one, in my opinion, to pick. It's Alexander Volkanovski. This division, it's got a lot of good fighters. There are people coming up. Your Ilia Topuria is sitting down there at 9. Josh Emmett and Yair Rodriguez are fighting for the interim title, while Alexander Volkanovski fights Islam Makhachev for the lightweight title here coming up soon this year, early first quarter. That's a great fight, but I just think that Volkanovski, like I said earlier, when I was talking about him being male fight of the year, I just think that he has separated himself so far from the rest of this division, just in overall ability and skill. Now, Yair Rodriguez has looked great. Brian Ortega is suffering an injury. Arnold Allen looks great as well. He looks powerful, looks strong. I just don't know if these guys have the striking ability to keep up with Volkanovski. The way he dispatched Max Holloway was incredible. And Alexander Volkanovski, come January 1st, 2024, is your UFC featherweight champion. Moving on. Men's lightweight. Like I just said, easy segue. Volkanovski is challenging the champion Islam Makhachev in February of this year. And I predict Islam Makhachev to be champion 2024, January 1st. I just think that his grappling is just so far ahead of everybody else. The way he squeezes on people, the way he forces you to just be in bad position, and I don't know if anybody in this division can beat him. The only guy that I think that gives him a competition right now is Beneil Dariush. But even then, I just think Islam will just control the funkiness. I think that he'll allow him to be funky, but will just flow through the position well enough to where he's just never going to let himself become in too ugly of a position. But this division is amazing as well, man. This is definitely the second deepest division. You've got a lot of new guys coming up in this division that I think will definitely contend for titles for sure. But I think come the end of the year, Islam Makhachev will still be your champion of the men's lightweight division. January 1st, 2024. Islam Makhachev. Moving on, men's welterweight. Now, this is a fun one. Leon Edwards, of course, had his phenomenal victory over Kamaru Usman. And this division's kind of all in a strange place because, you've got Leon sitting there. You've got Kamaru at number 1. Colby Covington hasn't fought in forever. Hamzat, we don't know what division he's fighting in, whether it's welterweight or middleweight. Bilal Muhammad, he's made his statements recently. He's wanted Hamzat Chimaev. He's wanted Leon Edwards. He's calling out everybody. Gilbert Burns is still in the mix. Stephen Thompson arguably had a better performance in his last fight than Gilbert Burns has looked. And then, you've got Shavkat Rakhmonov taking off Jeff Neal here soon. Sean Brady, he lost to Bilal Muhammad recently. Vicente Luque still in the mix at number 9. You've got Masvidal, who they've got this just like underlying storyline with Masvidal and Leon Edwards, the 3-piece in the soda a couple years ago, backstage scrum. Neil Magny, he's got a fight coming up with Gilbert Burns. Michael Chiesa sitting there at 13. Michelle Pereira at 14. The Leech, Li Jingling at 15. It's a good division. This division, it's in a weird position, like I said, because there's so many fighters that need to have fights made. We need fights to happen at the top of the division. But if I had to pick somebody to be champion on January 1st of 2024, and this is a little bit of a stretch, he needs to get the fights to happen. He needs people to fight him. He needs to have a couple of fights this year. I would say 3 at least, 4 if I'm being dead honest, which is a stretch. But I'm picking Shavkat Rakhmonov to be champion on January 1st of 2024. He's a number 10 ranked guy. You know, he was supposed to fight Jeff Neal this coming up weekend on Saturday, the 14th. And, you know, Neal had to back it up just for a minor injury. Now they're fighting in March, if I remember correctly. And, you know, he really needed, honestly, in my opinion, that January fight. But I know if he, you know, makes smooth work of Jeff Neal, doesn't eat too many damage, he can turn around then and fight, you know, June, you know, International Fight Week, early July, maybe even squeeze in then one in October and then close out the year in December. I think is totally possible. You know, he just has to get, the people just have to accept the fights, and he has to make smooth work. And I think that he can. I think he has all the skill. I think he has all the talent, the striking, the grappling, the position control. Where he is at his best is it makes it's not other fighters' best positions to be in. You know, will it happen? It's a little bit of a stretch, but I'm praying and I'm hoping for it. I mean, my fight to make of 2024, and I just pray that we eventually get to see this, 2023, sorry. I hope we get to see this fight. Khamzat Chimaev versus Shavkat Rakhmonov. I mean, that fight is just banger written all over it. I mean, level of emotion around that fight. But, you know, I just think Shavkat Rakhmonov has the skill, and I'm making a little bit of reach, like I said, but I think come January 1st, 2024, Shavkat Rakhmonov is your champion of the welterweight division in the UFC. Moving on. Men's middleweight. Your current champion is Alex Pereira. As we know, he closed out the year knocking out Israel Adesanya to gain the belt in their third fight overall, first fight in MMA. You know, but come January 1st of 2024, Robert Whittaker, Bobby Knuckles, is your champion of the middleweight division. You know, I think that Robert Whittaker is probably going to get a title fight here soon against Pereira, and I think that he can. I think he can beat Pereira just with the grappling. I think that he's a bad Silex matchup. The way he closes the distance, he's got some funkiness to the way he strikes. He's always in position, but he's always catching people on the half step. And he's looked great. He's looked great. I mean, even the rematch with Izzy was a very, very close fight. Izzy looked good. You know, he got the win, but, you know, some people argue that Robert Whittaker won. You know, I didn't see it that way, but, you know, it was a close fight. And I just don't think that the UFC is going to push for the rematch with Poatan, between Izzy and Poatan, as quickly as, you know, we think it is. Maybe they do. And if they do, I honestly don't know if Izzy can beat this man. I think he's just in his head. I think that Pereira just has that thing that is just, he will always beat Izzy. And you know, that can be a tough thing to deal with sometimes for fighters. And he's lost 3 times, and now he's beat him at his own game. And I just don't know if Izzy can make up that gap to take that next step and beat Pereira. But I think Robert Whittaker can. Just stylistically, I think he has the right style to beat Pereira. And I think come January 1st of 2024, your champion of middleweight in the UFC is Robert Bobby Knuckles Whittaker. Moving on to the light heavyweight division. The division in the most shambles in this entire promotion, maybe in all of MMA. This division is just, who knows what's going on. You know, it's vacant right now. So there will be a new champion crowned very shortly. You know, the title fight coming up is Glover Teixeira versus Jamahal Hill. And, you know, it's just, yeah, this division is in a weird place. You know, Yuri's out for a while with that shoulder injury. Magomed Ankalaev and Jan Blachowicz, they just had their fight to a draw. And I don't think that the Prez is really happy with Jan or Magomed at this point, just for the draw. You know, Rakic, he's at 5. He's out for a little bit. Anthony Smith was set to fight Jamal Hill, but, you know, now he's the training partner for Jamal Hill. I guess it's because, you know, we've already seen Anthony Smith fight Glover Teixeira, and Glover Teixeira beat the shit out of him. Let's just be frank about it. And I don't think anybody else below that is really even deserving of a title shot. But, you know, the UFC, it's a meritocracy has gone out the window in the UFC. You don't always even have to be the highest ranked guy, and this is a perfect example of it. Jamal Hill is number 7, and he's getting the title shot against Glover Teixeira, sitting at number 2. But if I had to pick one guy to be your champion at January 1st, 2024, it's Magomed Ankalaev. I think that he can beat up Glover Teixeira. I think he's faster. I think he's stronger. I think he's got better striking. I think Jamal Hill doesn't have the grappling to keep up with Magomed Ankalaev. We did see a little bit of the blueprint to beat Ankalaev, in my opinion, even though he didn't technically lose the fight to Jan Blachowicz. The leg kicks are a thing. I think he'll work on that, secure that up, start checking kicks better. But neither two of those guys are really the people to leg kick. Rakic's going to be out with a while, like I said, but I just think that Ankalaev is going to get the title shot versus the winner of this Glover Teixeira versus Jamal Hill fight. And I think he gets it. I think he ends the year as your champion. I just think he's good. He's really, really good. And that fight with Jan was close, but I thought that Ankalaev won. Terrible decision by the judges. That's it. This division, this division just needs to work itself out. We need this division to just figure it out. We need a champion, number 1, first of all, and we'll get that, hopefully. The worst case scenario for the UFC is the Glover Teixeira versus Jamal Hill fight ends in a draw. That is the absolute worst case scenario. And I hope that doesn't happen. I pray that doesn't happen. But come January 1st, 2024, Magomed Ankalaev is your champion of the light heavyweight division in men's UFC. Moving on to the big man, the biggest, baddest man on the planet. Who will that be come 2024, January 1st? And this is a little bit of isn't too much of a shocker, I think, to us at this point. I'm picking Jon Jones. I think Jon Jones comes back and shows everybody who the biggest, baddest man on the planet is, who's the GOAT of all time, who's the greatest. I think he beats Francis Ngannou in the biggest fight in MMA history. This one could fill up a major stadium, and I think they will. I think that they put all the promotion behind the return of Jon Jones in this fight. And they match him up with Francis Ngannou and Jon Jones. They only do one fight this year, both of them, and Jon Jones ends up being the champion of the men's heavyweight division. This fight is, there's so many questions around this fight. Like I've said before on this podcast, what is Jon going to look like? What is Francis going to look like? Does he either have the game to control, where both guys have improved at or are very good at? Does Jon Jones have the chin to handle the power of Francis? Does Francis have the wrestling ability to handle Jon Jones? Does Jon Jones have the wrestling ability to handle the strength of Francis Ngannou? Just so many questions, but just two such formidable, intimidating people, just the biggest, baddest man on the planet. They step in the octagon versus each other, and Jon Jones ends up victorious and closes out the year as your men's heavyweight champion and solidifies himself as the greatest of all time. If he beats Francis Ngannou, the argument's over. It's done. No more. Don't even ask. It's Jon Jones, and it's not even close if he beats Francis Ngannou and wins that heavyweight belt. I will not listen to your arguments. I'm sorry. If you could say whoever you want is the GOAT, but you're wrong if it's not Jon Jones, if he beats Francis Ngannou. And yeah, 2024, January 1st, I cannot wait to see it. Hopefully we hit, maybe we're right on some of these, maybe we're not. Let me know down in the comments who y'all think. But before we get out of here, I've got 2 hot takes for 2023. I don't know if either of these are going to happen, and one of these, it's a little bit of a caveat, because of just the content of it and the context of it, given some recent news. But I'm just going to put it out there anyways. Khabib would have been my coach of the year. I should have done him. I should have included that in the awards. I'm sorry. Sorry, Khabib. You were the coach of the year, in my opinion, for 2022. But my hot take for 2023, there will be 4 champions in MMA coming from Team Khabib. You will have Islam Makhachev will end the year well, there will be 4 champions at some point this year coming from Team Khabib. Islam Makhachev, Umar Nurmagomedov, Saeed Ismagaev, who's in ONE FC, and then Bilal Muhammad in the UFC as well. I think that you will have 4 champions coming off Team Khabib at some point this year, all together, all of them champions simultaneously. 4 champions, never been done before in my opinion, in my like that I know of. Somebody will fact check me on that. I could be wrong, but regardless, if Khabib puts 4 champions in his corner, in his team, even though he's stepping away from MMA and coaching or whatever, that's just the rumor. He's kind of confirmed it. We don't really know. He could come back at any time. We love the man. He's a man of all morals, but if he can have 4 people that he has trained as champion, I mean, that might be one of the greatest accomplishments of MMA history as a coach. I mean, that would just put the legacy of Khabib, I mean, to the next level. That's father's plan become Khabib as a father plan kind of thing. And that's one of my hot takes for the year. 4 champions out of Team Khabib. But let's move on to my spiciest take, in my opinion. Yeah. Okay. This probably isn't even that spicy of a one, in my opinion. Actually, let me go back. This is not the spiciest one, but this is a hot take. Conor comes back and gets a title shot in the men's lightweight division, and it's in Cowboy Stadium, finally going to go to Jerry's World, and it will be against Islam Makhachev at the end of the year, December of 2023. I think Conor comes back, knocks out Michael Chandler at International Fight Week, makes a call out for Islam for the title. The UFC makes it happen, and then they make this fight happen in Cowboy Stadium, the biggest place they've ever held a fight at. I mean, everybody knows Jerry's World. I think Conor loses that fight, honestly, pretty convincingly, actually, to Islam. But I think Conor comes back and ends up, at the end of the year, getting a title shot. Those are my 2 hot takes for 2023. Let me know what you think. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, share it with your friends, and let's just see how 2023 plays out. It's already started off crappy. There's a bunch of stuff. We'll get into all the news and rumors and everything like that at the end on the next episode. I'm out. Check y'all next time.